The movie opens in 1968. Iris Campbell and her fiancé, Paul, are driving along a winding road. Paul has playfully blindfolded Iris, insisting he's taking her to a surprise destination. When they finally arrive, Paul reveals the newly opened Skyview restaurant tower. Iris is thrilled and embraces him warmly. The couple takes a photo at the entrance before making their way to the elevator. Although the elevator is already full, a staff member urges them to squeeze in. Iris hesitates, but the staff is insistent. Reluctantly, they enter. As the elevator doors close, they momentarily get stuck, forcing the staff member to push them shut. On the ride up, Iris becomes visibly unsettled, feeling an inexplicable sense of dread. She tries to shake it off. At the top, they approach the maitre d', only to be told the restaurant has exceeded its capacity and cannot accommodate them. Disappointed, they decide to explore the observation area on their own. Iris, clearly uncomfortable with the height, admits she's never been this far off the ground. She nervously picks a flower from a vase and accidentally pricks her finger. While Paul fetches drinks, Iris, still uneasy, heads to the restroom. There, she encounters a woman with a child who notices her distress. During their brief conversation, it's revealed that Iris is 2 months pregnant, news she hasn't yet shared with Paul. Moments later, Paul takes her to the highest level of the tower for some air. A child nearby is tossing coins off the edge, and a woman's hat is blown away by the wind. Suddenly, Paul drops to one knee and proposes. Overwhelmed with joy, Iris accepts and reveals her pregnancy. They laugh and embrace. As they begin to head back inside, Iris notices the same child throwing coins again. This time, one coin ricochets into a nearby vent, jamming a fan. Inside, a musical performance begins, and the crowd starts dancing on a glass floor, unaware that beneath them, the floor is cracking. Unbeknownst to everyone, the jammed fan causes a nearby gas heater to malfunction and leak. At the peak of the celebration, Iris has a terrifying premonition, a vision of a chandelier collapsing. Suddenly, her vision becomes reality. The glass beneath the dancers shatters, sending guests plummeting. One of the supporting pillars collapses, and chaos erupts. Paul clings to a ledge, but his grip fails. He falls to his death. Panic spreads as more guests catch fire from the leaking gas. Iris hides beneath a table. A staff member appears, attempting to lead the survivors to safety, but the walls begin to crumble, and many fall to their deaths. Only a few remain, among them, Iris and a young boy. As they scramble for the elevator, the crowd pushes forward, separating Iris. Desperate, she searches for an escape route. A section of the building breaks away, and she tries to save a woman from falling to the ledge, but the woman slips and falls. A piano crashes down towards the woman and crashes the platform, crushing anyone left on it. The young boy survives the fall, but is fatally killed by the falling piano. Believing herself to be the sole survivor, Iris discovers the woman's child hiding in a box. She grabs him and runs, but the building is collapsing all around them. In a final, harrowing moment, they are left hanging by a thread, literally. The only thing keeping them from falling is Iris's engagement ring, caught on a small piece of metal. The ring slips. They both fall to their deaths. Suddenly, a college student named Stefani jorts awake in a cold sweat. It's the same nightmare she's been having for 2 months. Her roommate, concerned by her nightly terrors, wakes up and comforts her. Stefani reveals that the woman in her dreams, Iris Campbell, is her grandmother, a relative she never knew or met. Her roommate urges her to return home and uncover the truth behind these haunting visions. The next day, Stefani sets out in her car, determined to return home. Upon arriving, she's greeted warmly by her father, Marty. Wasting no time, Steph begins searching for a box containing her mother's old belongings. When she asks Marty about it, explaining that she needs it to learn more about her grandmother, Iris, he finds the request odd and tells her he got rid of those boxes years ago after her mother left. Soon, her younger brother Charlie comes downstairs, planning to visit their cousins. Steph offers to drive him, seizing the opportunity to talk more openly. During the ride, Steph reluctantly confesses that she's on academic probation and begs him not to tell their father. Charlie promises to keep her secret with a pinky swear. Steph then opens up about her nightmares, haunting dreams about her grandmother's death that she can't seem to escape. They arrive at their cousin's house, where they're greeted by Eric, Bobby, and Julia. The group exchanges cheerful hellos before Steph heads inside to speak with her Aunt Brenda and Uncle Howard. Brenda greets her kindly, and Howard arrives shortly after. Steph quickly brings up the topic of Iris, but Howard brushes it off, claiming there isn't much to tell. Undeterred, Steph shares the details of her vivid nightmares, set in the 1950s, which visibly stuns both Howard and Brenda. As Steph continues to plead for answers, Eric interrupts, casually dismissing the conversation, adding that they all assumed Iris had long since died. Steph insists that if she can just speak to her grandmother, the nightmares might stop. That's when Howard finally reveals the dark family history. After their father died, Iris suffered a mental break. She locked her children in the house, believing that if they didn't go outside, death wouldn't find them. Eventually, the state intervened, taking Howard and Steph's mother, Darlene, away from Iris. The trauma drove Darlene to walk away from her own marriage. Years later, Iris began sending terrifying letters, filled with obituaries and cryptic warnings about death. When Steph asks to see the letters, Howard warns her to stay away from Iris, for her own safety. Still, Steph turns to Brenda for help. Initially hesitant, Brenda eventually gives in and tells her where to find the letters. Inside them, Steph discovers an address, and without hesitation, she sets out to find Iris. Steph drives deep into a desolate wooded area marked with foreboding signs. No trespassing. Keep out. Eventually, she comes upon a heavily secured cabin where Iris now lives in isolation. Through a speaker, Iris demands Steph surrender all her devices, keys, and electronics before she'll be allowed inside. Once Steph complies, the gate slowly opens. Inside, Iris cautiously welcomes her but maintains distance, setting a chair down for Steph instead of letting her come close. As Steph begins explaining her dreams and the reason for her visit, Iris, now terminally ill, reveals the horrifying truth. The nightmares aren't just dreams. They're premonitions. Iris recounts that she once saw the disaster at the Skyview Tower before it happened. In her vision, the tower collapsed, killing everyone, including Paul. But on the day of the event, she acted on her premonition, stopping the child from throwing coins, halting the music, and warning guests to clear the dance floor. Her actions prevented the disaster, and the tower never fell. But their survival came at a price. Death had been cheated, and over the years, it began reclaiming the lives that were never meant to continue. One by one, the survivors, and even their descendants, met mysterious and gruesome fates. Paul was among the first, and now, Steph and others like her are being haunted by the consequences of a fate that was never supposed to exist. Since the visions began, Iris had devoted herself to studying death, meticulously documenting its patterns and omens in a journal. Now terminally ill with cancer, she believes her premonitions have been passed down to Steph. She urges Steph to stay with her, to learn death's methods and possibly survive its wrath. But Steph, frightened and skeptical, chooses to leave. As Steph walks away, Iris warns her that death is coming for their family. Steph refuses to believe her. In a chilling moment of defiance and proof, Iris steps outside for the first time in years, knowing it's her time, and hands Steph the book. A sudden chain reaction occurs, and a weather vane is violently torn loose by the wind, impaling Iris through the mouth and killing her instantly. At Iris's funeral, a shaken Steph speaks with Howard, recounting Iris's last words, that death is coming for their bloodline. Suddenly, a car pulls up. Inside is Darlene, Steph, and Charlie's estranged mother. But Steph, still harboring deep resentment over her mother's absence, prepares to leave. Charlie pleads with her to give Darlene a chance, but Steph remains guarded. Frustrated, Charlie calls her crazy and walks off. Back home, Steph continues digging into Iris's journal, trying to make sense of the dark warnings. During a family barbecue, ominous signs begin to unfold. Julia is preparing drinks while Bobby brings out cups and ice. One of the cups breaks, and a sharp piece of glass accidentally falls into the ice. Unaware, they pack the ice into drinks. Meanwhile, Darlene arrives with homemade cookies, unfortunately made with peanut butter, which Bobby is allergic to. She apologizes as the family carries on. As they toast to survival, Steph, deep in Iris's notes, begins piecing together the clues. Something terrible is about to happen. Back at the barbecue, Bobby and Charlie bounce playfully on an inflatable net, not realizing a rake lies hidden beneath it. At the same time, a framed photo in Steph's room crashes to the floor, an ominous sign. Howard offers Darlene a room in the house instead of letting her sleep in her truck, but she declines. Meanwhile, Steph rushes to the barbecue, trying desperately to warn them, calling Charlie repeatedly with no answer. Back on the inflatable, the net weakens as Bobby and Charlie invite Howard to join them, making it even more unstable. Darlene spots the rake and rushes to remove it. Steph arrives just as disaster strikes. A drink containing the hidden glass shard topples. Howard steps on it, causing him to stumble. At that moment, a lawnmower, accidentally triggered by the rake, activates and drives toward him. Unable to escape in time, Howard is violently killed by the machine. Following Howard's funeral, Steph continues her research and discovers a mysterious figure named JB, who once survived death's design. She begins charting the pattern. Death is working its way through their family tree. At a family meeting, Steph explains that Iris had evaded death for years by studying its rules, and now it's targeting their bloodline again. She warns that none of them were ever meant to exist, except for Marty and Brenda, who are not biologically tied to Iris. She outlines the death sequence. It begins with the oldest on each family branch. Since Howard was the eldest, his family is the first to be targeted. Next is Darlene's branch. Steph insists Eric is next, though most of the family dismisses her claims. When Darlene tries to talk to her, Steph, overwhelmed and frustrated, walks away. That night, Eric is alone at the tattoo parlor. After piercing a client's tongue, he cranks up the music and begins cleaning up. While replying to a text from Steph, he reminisces about their late father and decides to tattoo Dad on his back. A strange chain reaction begins. A glass container shatters, disinfectant spills, and a chain hanging from the ceiling catches on his septum piercing. As he struggles to free himself, the chain becomes tangled in the spinning ceiling fan. Sparks ignite, and a fire breaks out. Eric pulls the chain free just in time, but he falls into the fire, and the shop explodes. The next day, a concerned Steph and Charlie head out in search of Eric, fearing the worst. To their surprise, they run into him, alive but badly burned. He survived thanks to his thick leather jacket. As he talks with Steph, a speeding truck nearly hits him, heightening her fears that death is still coming for him. Determined to help him survive, Steph begins pointing out hazards for Eric to avoid. Meanwhile, a garbage truck arrives in the neighborhood as Julia heads out for a jog. A rogue ball hits her, knocking her into a trash bin. Unseen, she's tossed into the truck's compactor. Steph, Charlie, and Eric rush to stop the machine, but the driver, lost in his music, doesn't hear them. Steph climbs up to try and save Julia, but tragically, Julia is crushed to death inside the compactor. Now, the family can no longer deny the truth. Death is indeed stalking Iris's descendants. That's when Brenda reveals a devastating secret. Eric isn't biologically Howard's son. That explains why death didn't come for him first. Enraged and betrayed, Eric storms off, furious at the revelation. With the deaths mounting, it's now clear that Bobby is next on death's list. Desperate, he turns to Steph for help. But Steph, overwhelmed and uncertain, doesn't know what to do until she remembers JB, the man Iris mentioned in her journal. According to Iris, JB once knew someone who survived death. Darlene recalls JB's last known location, a place called River Hospital. Determined, Steph decides they must go find him. Bobby insists on joining them, and Eric, now deeply invested, decides to come along to protect Bobby. They arrive at Hope River Hospital and make their way into an autopsy room where they finally meet JB. Surprisingly, he knows each of their names. When Steph asks how he knew Iris, he reveals a haunting past. He was a boy at Sky River the day Iris saved everyone. Afterward, she tracked him down, and they became close friends. He had even helped her manage her cancer with alternative treatments. When they ask how to cheat death, JB grimly explains there are only two ways: kill someone to steal their lifespan, or die and be revived, referencing a woman named Kimberly who broke death's chain this way. She was meant to die, but her doctor revived her, which reset the cycle, though it was extremely risky. Steph begs JB for another option, but he tells her there isn't one. Now sick with cancer himself, JB says he's retiring, choosing to enjoy the last of his life before death catches up. With that, he wishes them luck and walks away. Desperate, Eric proposes a chilling plan: kill Bobby and immediately resuscitate him. It's their only shot. Steph hesitates, but Eric convinces Bobby to go through with it. At a vending machine, Eric buys peanuts, fully aware that Bobby is allergic. When the snack gets stuck, Eric shakes the machine while Bobby helps until the peanuts fall. Eric then leads Bobby into one of the hospital rooms, leaving him with the snack while he retrieves a wheelchair. Unbeknownst to them, they've entered an MRI room. Meanwhile, Steph, Darlene, and Charlie search the hospital, trying to find them. Inside the room, Eric confiscates Bobby's EpiPen and forces him to eat the peanuts, triggering his allergic reaction. Bobby gasps and fights back, desperately trying to reclaim the EpiPen, but Eric holds him off. Then, disaster strikes. The MRI machine malfunctions. Eric's metal piercings and the wheelchair are magnetically pulled toward it. He's dragged violently and crushed to death by the machine. Bobby, gasping and barely conscious, manages to reach the EpiPen and injects himself. But before he can recover, a spring-loaded mechanism from a nearby vending machine fires off and impales his head, killing him just as Steph, Darlene, and Charlie arrive. Realizing they could be next, the three survivors decide to flee. Their only hope now is Iris's remote cabin, the place where she evaded death for decades. Unbeknownst to them, a small coin slips from Iris's book and falls to the ground. A stranger picks it up. The trio climbs into Darlene's RV and hits the road. Along the way, a near collision with a truck shakes them, prompting Steph to take the wheel. As they reach the cabin gates, Steph senses death closing in and speeds up, crashing through the entrance. But before they can reach safety, Steph gets trapped in her seatbelt. Suddenly, a surge of electricity explodes the cabin. The blast sends the RV hurtling into the nearby lake. Steph begins to drown while Charlie gets pinned as a nearby electric pole starts to collapse. Darlene leaps into action, freeing Charlie and pleading with him to save Steph before the collapsing pole slices her apart. Charlie dives into the water, cuts Steph free with a knife, and performs CPR. She gasps back to life. Believing they've finally broken death's chain, the tow survivors leave the ruins together. 1 week later, Steph takes Charlie to his senior prom. While helping him adjust his suit, she pricks herself on a pin. Meanwhile, the same woman who picked up the fallen coin drops it near a train rail. Unaware of its ominous importance at that moment, Charlie's father arrives with a friend who reveals a disturbing truth. Steph was never clinically dead during the drowning. Her heart never stopped, which means the chain was never broken. Just then, chaos erupts. A train derails and barrels into the neighborhood. Steph and Charlie try to escape, but massive logs from the wreckage crash down on them, killing them instantly. The movie ends. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.